I tell my story as the daughter of South Asian immigrants. I speak really mostly only for my subset of the Muslim community in this story. I grew up watching Cops and Law & Order, SVU, and Law & Order Criminal Intent, and the O.J. Simpson car chase, and the O.J. Simpson trial, and so many other mass media demonstrations of the criminalization of African Americans and Latinos. And I didn't question any of it, none of it. If I had nothing to hide, why did it matter if law enforcement wanted to search my car? If I hadn't done anything wrong, why did it matter if they wanted to question me? And if I traveled to a suspicious country, sure, they may stop me at the airport, but it was to keep our country safe. It was because they had something to do. This was their job. I should respect them. I should not question them. I should not push back against them. This was my reality as a daughter of South Asian immigrants, going to the masjid every day in a practicing Muslim household where we talked about activism and social justice, so much so that it laid the foundation for me to grow up to be a civil rights attorney and the executive director of a care office. Still, I had to respect law enforcement. Fast forward about 20 years. Yasser Afifi walks into my office. He is then 20 years old, an Arab American youth from the Santa Clara community. His story is a bit unbelievable, even to me, even having been in this work for a couple of years at the time, and having read all of those long textbooks they make you read in law school. He says he took his car in for an oil change, and he looked under his car by chance. I've never done that. Like, my dad tried to teach me a little bit about cars, and I refused. So I've never looked under my car. It's not something I do at the mechanics. Him, his friend, and their mechanic found two pieces of, even then, archaic technology. A black box about this big, and then a battery pack, a little bit bigger. They didn't know what it was, but they detached it. They took pictures of it. They posted it online. And the post went viral. The questions were, what is this? Is law enforcement tracking me? What should I do with this? Very quickly, a few technology geeks figured out that it was indeed a GPS tracking device. So then the questions were, do we sell it on eBay? Do we attach it to another police officer's car? Do we dump it in a lake? Do we walk it into the police department? What do we do with it? But before they could do anything with it, Yasser was visited at home by half a dozen law enforcement agents, local and federal. They stopped him outside of his house and they said, get this, did you find the thing that we left on your car? We need it back. It's really expensive. We will make your life difficult if you don't give it back to us. And Yasser did what I might have, given my upbringing, given my unwillingness to question law enforcement. But also, considering the fact that he was a 20-year-old youth without a lawyer present and surrounded by law enforcement agents right outside of his house. He gave it back. They then questioned him about his family, his community, his associations. He understood very quickly that they had been following him for some time, that they were very serious about being interested in him. The next day he walked into my office and told me this story. Like many people, I was surprised. I'm not even sure that I believed him immediately, but for the fact that he could name the FBI agents that had questioned him. And we called them, and of course they verified that they were interested in him, that they wanted to speak to him further. This is when it hit home, that my family and my community's silence during the war on drugs in the 80s and 90s was going to have an impact on me and my community. That what we didn't speak out about, that what we didn't question, what we let happen silently was coming home. I can't tell these stories without, of course, stopping to say that I hope everyone in this audience knows that if you're ever approached by law enforcement in whatever setting, irrespective of your citizenship status, and whether you're in custody or not, you always have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. And gosh, if you find a GPS tracking device, don't give it back to them. Please don't. Call me. Call Sajid, call Zafir, call any of the attorneys that you know in this community. Do not give it back to them. Here's the thing though, they don't use those GPS tracking devices anymore. unless it's a practical joke. Like, they really shouldn't be. Now, they can go to our cell phone providers, our internet providers, the informants in our community to get information about who we are and what we do. I tell these stories because I hope that Muslims understand, all of us understand, that the right thing to do is to speak up, speak out, and push back when another community is being targeted. It is the right thing to do. We believe that Islam was sent as a mercy to all people, not just to Muslims, not just to Pakistanis, not just to recent immigrants, not just to the residents of Oakland or San Jose, but to all people. And so my religion calls me to say that this is wrong, that I must stop this, that I must advocate against it, that I must visit my city council and visit my legislators in DC and write letters and talk to people about what is not okay. But self-service sometimes is a higher calling than the right thing. Self-service is sometimes a higher calling than spirituality. So I also say that we have a self-interest in protecting other communities. What happened during the 80s and 90s through the war on drugs was not new. It was made possible in part by what was happening during the COINTELPRO era, just a few decades prior. What happens during the war on terror is not new. It is made possible by what happened during the war on drugs. Those GPS tracking devices and even the lawsuits that finally resolved Yasser's case all originated from the war on drugs. The question that keeps me up at night when I hear about Khairuddin Makhzoomi being escorted off a Southwest Airlines flight, when I hear about Hani Khan being told that she cannot work at Abercrombie & Fitch, when I hear about Yasser Afifi finding a GPS tracking device on his car, and those are less than 1% of the cases that we receive every year at our offices at CARE, is what will we do? What will our legacy be? How will we push back so that when the next community is targeted, we can say we did the best we could and we are continuing to fight? And so I make a few asks. The first, as I mentioned, is to know our rights. Your rights are only as good as your willingness to assert them. So know your rights. The second is to fight for our community. We are the center of the civil rights fight right now. We are not the only community that is the center of the civil rights fight right now, but we are one of those communities. And if we are unwilling to question, then these things will continue to happen to our brothers, our sisters, our imams, our activists, our parents. They will continue to happen. So the second is to push back to protect our community. And the third is to start to build alliances outside of our community. Some people are doing this already. So this isn't to say that it's not happening or to erase that work, but to say that we need more of it. Our community alone is too small to take on the civil rights issues that we are facing. Our community is too small to push back for other communities solo. Our community isn't even always known. Sometimes people don't know that we're missing at the table because we're so frequently not there. And so stepping outside of the comfort zone and saying what the Oakland PD does, what the San Jose PD does to my neighbors, though it may not be the same thing that the FBI does to my community members, is still relevant to me. And if I push back against it today, then my hope is, one, that I will earn the pleasure of Allah, because it is the right thing to do, but that I will also protect my children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and community. When maybe they are not targeted because they look Muslim, but instead they are targeted because they protested with Black Lives Matter, or because they are hackers, or because they traveled to China. We have our work cut out for us, but we have history that teaches us how to do it. And we have all of us together so that we are not alone in this fight. Jazakallah khair.